Playing through Fallout 3 as a baby with only crafted weapons was interesting, but ultimately exhausting, so I want to switch it up a bit this week. So with the announcement of possibly 2 new games in the Arkham series being released pretty soon, I thought it would be fitting to go back and play through the game that started it all, Arkham Asylum. This obviously won't be a normal playthrough of course, as today I want to find out, can you beat Arkham Asylum without taking any damage? The Batman games are obviously pretty action heavy, meaning the odds will be against me. However, it's actually the stealth sections that have me the most worried, as if even a single bullet grazes Batman's body, then I'm done. With that being said, the rules this time are pretty straightforward. If I take damage of any kind, be it from an enemy or the environment, then I must load back to a previous checkpoint because to my knowledge, unlike say Skyrim or Fallout New Vegas, I can't open up the console command window and just change my max health. And with that, let's get started. When starting, I choose save file 4 because I found the look on his face hilarious. I wasn't sure what difficulty to pick, but I ended up saying on easy because I'm a little bitch. Because I feel it won't matter what the difficulty is if everyone's going to kill me in one hit anyway. And from previous experience, all that really changes between easy and normal is enemy damage output, although I could be wrong. The first 10 minutes or so just involve me slowly walking behind the guards as I escort the Joker to his cell, so I'll skip to when I actually get full control of Batman. The first group of enemies aren't meant to pose too much of a threat, obviously, so they don't even come close to dealing any damage to me. I also grab a Riddler trophy for some easy experience as I want to level up as much as I can to make fights easier down the road. I don't get spotted by Zaz and was able to quickly stop him from turning the guard into bacon bits. In the next room I saved everyone from the laughing gas with no problems, even one of Joker's henchmen. Now I have my first run-in with a Titan, which is pretty simple as this fight is just on a time limit, so all I have to do is roll around until he has a heart attack. Afterwards I have to backtrack, something you do a lot of in this game by the way, to pick up the trail of where to go next. Which leads me to the next big fight at the top of the elevator shaft. Thankfully it's still early on in the game, so there is no real variety yet in terms of enemies, so fights like these are no real concern. In the next room I get to the first stealth section of the game. The hardest part of the stealth sections for me personally is how limited you are in these parts of the game. It wouldn't be until Arkham City where they really give you a lot to work with and be creative. That being said, this is where I take damage for the first time when attempting to sneak up on an enemy and get shot at point blank range. So I reset and redo the section, being more careful, and I get through it relatively quickly. Once I'm finished up here, I am finally able to get outside and protect my car from some pesky traffic wardens. Before following Gordon's tobacco trail, he swears it's medicinal, but I don't believe him. And that leads me to getting clocked in the back of the head and another reset. 2 deaths this early on is more than I thought, if I'm gonna be honest, so I'm really not looking forward to the later game when things start to get more difficult. Once I deal with them on my second attempt, I make my way inside to another stealth segment and get shot out of the air like a clay pigeon, resulting in, you guessed it, another reset. From this point on, I'm only going to go over resets if it's a tough section. So if you see the death counter going up without me mentioning it, just assume I was being an idiot and got punched for it. While I see the people stuck in the room filled with the Joker gas, I 100% kill this man. I don't care what you say. Not only did he fall with enough force to go through a concrete wall, he also slammed into the hard tile floor below and inhaled the gas because I hadn't turned on the lower valve yet. The rest of the doctors are saved with no trouble, other than Dr. Young, who had 2 walls exploded about 3 feet from her. I also have my first instance of getting through a stealth section without having to reset, which is a breath of fresh air. Next up is the first Scarecrow encounter, which is really over before it begins properly, if I'm gonna be honest. I got caught off guard by some of the thugs afterwards, but found a much easier way to deal with them on the second go around. Next is what I call one of the advanced stealth sections, where you have to take out the enemies without ever being spotted or else it results in a game over. Which, to be fair, when playing how I am right now, isn't all that different. The first boss fight with Bane is relatively simple, as it's more of a tutorial to teach you how to deal with any Titan thugs later in the game. So you just stand back, you throw a batarang, you punch him a few times. Do that all 3 times and the fight's over. Not too difficult. After Bane gets the old deer in the headlights treatment, it's off to the Batcave so we can get the Batclaw, which allows us to pull down crates so Batman can go play in the sewers. It doesn't however let us grab Riddler trophies, which is something I found out rather quickly, yet continue to try over and over for some reason. After that ordeal, I have a few more uninteresting fights in the sewers and go to make my way back to
I will find you. Rip your flesh like paper.
This is the wrong room.
Okay, so the way you are meant to go forces you to do some climbing without your grapple hook, and for as short as these segments are, I'll say it right now, these are my least favourite part of the game. Batman does not make for a very good platformer. Once outside, this is where the snipers are first introduced. It's usually a pretty simple section as it's just to get you used to them, but thanks to Arkham Asylum being limited in what you can do during stealth, I had to sit and watch as this guard slowly lined up his shot and took me out while I could do nothing. That said, I think he may actually have been partially blind, seeing how I walked right past him next time and he didn't even acknowledge me. The next room contains a decently large fight, but they are still all just unarmed thugs at this point, so no deaths. Well, I say that, but in the very next room I get stabbed. So yeah. I get it right in my next attempt though, and after I save the guards from this evil boxing glove, I make my way to the room where the Joker collars are now introduced, meaning I have to be more creative with the stealth sections. And I do just that by using the collars as bait while I lay down explosives to take out anyone who comes to investigate. I actually managed to get a 3-for-1, which is great, and also may prove useful for stealth sections later. Next I just move on to... uh-oh. I think all that time following Gordon's tobacco trail is starting to have negative effects on Batman. Oh, and it's also giving me bad flashbacks to the crafted weapons challenge. Please don't make me walk this slow forever. Regardless, the second Scarecrow sections go by with no real issue. Once Batman finally comes down from his fever dream, we make our way to Dr. Young and finally rescue her. For about all of 10 seconds before she abruptly dies and we are off on another goose chase to find the Warden. Other than getting bonked a few times, totaling for 2 more deaths, nothing happens on the way there. Also, Poison Ivy being on the Green Mile? That's a pun, right? It's gotta be. Anyway, I save the Warden, deal with Harley's goons, disarm the bombs in the ventilation room, and then finally got to the Harley boss fight, if you could even call it that. I expected this to be a lot more difficult due to the electric floor, but turns out if you just stay in the middle and only run to either side when the electricity is about to start up, you'll be fine. Onwards to the Botanical Gardens, I tried to see if I could use the Batclaw on one of the insane inmates, and may have accidentally killed him in the progress. For everyone keeping score at home, Batman has now possibly killed 2 different inmates. Now it was time for the first stealth room in the gardens, and it was awful. I died 5 times in this room, be it from my own stupidity, being impatient, or some mix of the two. After roughly 20 minutes of attempts of me just throwing myself at them, I remembered the explosive gel, and used the same tactic from before with the first room with the collars, and shocking no one, it worked just as well this time. After that horrible experience, it's almost immediately followed by another stealth section, except it's just like the one before Bane, where I'm not allowed to be spotted or they will kill the hostages. This should have been more difficult than the stealth in the first room, but due to the number of blind spots and how far apart the guards are spaced, it was actually really easy. What wasn't easy was the fight with the 2 titans right afterwards. They got me a few times, which terrified me for when I'd have to fight them alongside groups of smaller enemies later on. No matter though, I was able to relieve my frustrations by using the Batclaw to pull even more people to death. Now you might argue and say they aren't dead as you can hear them land in water. But do you know who is down in that water? Yeah, they're dead. Speaking of Croc, that's where we need to go, because of course the MacGuffin we need is in the most dangerous part of the whole island. Would not be a video game if it wasn't. And now, since I have to leave, I, of course, have to do another stealth section in the same room that gave me so much trouble last time. Naturally, I die. Only once though, thankfully. Now though, I'm at the point where the murder plants start to pop up all over the island, and boy do I hate these little things. They not only fire up to 3 homing shots at once, but they also seem to do so at random, meaning you have to keep your eyes on them at all times, otherwise you're likely to get hit from off screen. Speaking of which, this next section with the plants and snipers was... horrible. Just horrible. After dying 6 times here, I finally was able to get rid of the sniper and the plants without taking any damage. Take that, you green bulby pr***. But you know what comes next? Another stealth section! But now I can't use the gargoyles because they are rigged with explosives, meaning I have almost no escape plans should I get spotted. I got close so many times, but would always get spotted or slip up right at the end and have to go through it all over again. I was finally able to make some progress by taking out the guard directly beneath the vent where you start, and then by using explosive gel on his body to get anyone who came to investigate the collar. I would then also quickly use the gargoyles to get away, and the resulting explosions of them would attract other guards to investigate and split them all up temporarily. I had a blessing in disguise whenever they saw me run down to the lower levels, which allowed me to use the sonic batarang to lure out one of them to be taken down, which then left only one guard that I was able to take out with a glide kick, and after nearly 30 minutes be done with this room. After that nightmare was over with, it was on to the final Scarecrow segment, which like the others is relatively After finally dealing with Scarecrow, all I have to do down here is slowly walk around gathering plants for 10 minutes or so, and occasionally throw batarangs at Killer Croc. It's an easy section overall, but that doesn't mean I'm not terrified the whole way, as anyone who's played this part before knows how nerve-wracking it can be. Before I can return to the surface though, I have to once again make my way through the room that hates fun. Oh, and there are murder plants here now, and they kill me, which you know... The next section where you have to destroy the boilers and are forced to fight a bunch of thugs and a titan should have been difficult, but I forgot you're immune to damage when you hijack a titan, so I basically just used that to my advantage to deal with all the enemies before finally finishing off the titan. As for what comes next, I have seen the 9th circle of hell and all it has in store for us is plants and sniper rifles. On the way to the Ivy fight I had to deal with more sniper thugs and murder plants, and I won't waste your time, it nearly broke me. I say nearly, because what did finally break me was the boss battle with Poison Ivy herself. It just seemed like every time I would make progress, one of her orbs would just hit me and I'd have to start the fight over. Not to mention the hitbox on her ground vine attack seemed to be a lot bigger than it let on, as it grabbed me a few times when I could have sworn I was outside the range of it. I was at this fight for so long that around the 8th death I had to turn the game off and come back to it the next day. In the end, I had to reset this fight 13 times. Do you know how annoying it was to see that same cutscene that many times because for some reason the game wouldn't let me skip it?
I told you to go to your cell.
I think the only reason I was able to beat her was because once her health goes down to half, you get a checkpoint, meaning I wouldn't have to do the whole fight over should I get hit. That being said, the second phase with the possessed prison guards was actually easier, as while they were attacking me, Ivy herself didn't seem anywhere near as aggressive. Thankfully, for my sanity's sake, I only died on the second phase once before I finally sprayed her with the last of my weed killer and could leave the dreaded Botanical Gardens for the last time. With Ivy finally out of the way, all that was left was the final boss. I, of course, stopped to get the Party Pooper achievement, because why wouldn't I? It did result in a death, mind you, but it's fine. I used the old explosive trick and I got it no problem. I made sure to stand back from the exploding television as I had no idea if it would have damaged me or not, but I obviously did not want to find out. The room right before the fight with Joker proved to be quite challenging with all the enemies and 2 titans, as it's basically a more difficult version of the fight in the boiler room. Joker himself, as most people probably know by this point, is nothing too difficult, so long as you're even somewhat competent in the game, which you should be if you got this far.
Tango!
The hardest part is honestly the exploding chattering teeth that are dropped into the arena, as during the chaos of fighting all the other thugs it's easy to lose track of them. Plus, it seems like they can fall down even when you're pulling Joker down with the bat claw, and if that happens, you're essentially forced to take damage. That said, it doesn't take long at all until I get a run where I'm able to get to his final phase and deal with all the thugs and chattering teeth without taking any damage and finish the game. So, in the end, yes, it is indeed possible to beat Arkham Asylum without taking any damage. In the end, I finished with a time of 6 hours and 41 minutes and a total of 73 deaths or resets. I think the idea of this challenge was actually a lot more fun than the challenge itself. While I was enjoying myself for most of it, as soon as the murder plants got introduced, it started getting more and more annoying as enemies were getting better equipped and it was becoming easier for them to punish any mistakes I made. I would like to try this challenge in the other Arkham games, however, as they add so many other options for you to approach scenarios, especially in the stealth sections, that I think it could be quite interesting. With all that being said, that's going to be the end of this challenge run video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel, as it really does help me out a lot, and it will let you know when I upload my next challenge run video. My name's Nerbit, and I'll see you all later.